So we're taking a look at the Tasty Chips GR Mega. It's a granular workstation. I bought this a while ago and I had in my mind this idea of using it to create a bunch of transition type sounds between different song parts, as well as atmospheric effects and pads. So that's really why I bought this. I don't have anything in the studio that is anything quite like this. I have a bunch of different modular gear that does granular effects, either with recorded or processed effects, and I'll talk about some of those things as we're using the GR Mega today. I've had a couple weeks where I've been able to spend some time playing with this. I'm not going to be doing a jam today, but I am going to take a moment to show some of the different modes that the GR Mega has and how you might think about incorporating those into your studio and your songs or sound design or whatever you're doing. And I think that that's really a big thing with this. It is a sound design powerhouse. I had always been interested in their previous synthesizer, the GR1. And when I saw that the GR Mega was coming out, it seemed like a perfect time to finally bring something like this into the studio. So we're just going to be using the Teenage Engineering OPXY to control it, really just kind of keeping this very simple for some of the demonstrations. So I went around the house and I sampled a bunch of things. The first sound that I have on here is the digital piano. This is the Kwai MP11SE, and I'm just going to show what this sound is and what it sounds like before I've done anything to it. Okay. Now I've turned it into a pad, and we're going to play around a little bit just so I can sort of show how quickly you can tear apart these sounds. But here's what I've got with it right now. You can still kind of pick up that this was a digital piano. I think that you can hear where it really excels, especially on this is on the granular engine, is taking a sound and making it really sort of smeared and very smooth. Now you can do very dark things, you can do all kinds of modulation. This thing is a modulation powerhouse. Like you have each patch, I've got 4 different patches loaded right now, and each one of these patches can have 4 different LFOs with multiple different things that they're modulating, and you can do almost anything. But this one's kind of a simple one, just to show, we've got this idea of But we've also got a couple of other things. So as I mentioned before, this is on the granular engine. There's also a slice engine for, you can load in drum samples. I'm actually not going to show that on this one. I'm going to show this on the next patch that I have. But we're going to move over to the sampler, which allows you to use it as a regular sampler. So you can use this as a sampler. Then you've got this tape mode, which is pretty cool. So we've kind of got almost, in some ways it kind of reminds me of vinyl scratching. And I'm actually going to turn down this reverb here for a moment. Probably one of the most fun things with this is using it to do these weird, very hands-on manipulations of sounds. Pretty cool. And then you've got this last mode here, which is the spectral mode. And the spectral mode is probably best demonstrated in the final patch that I have, which is a spoken word sample that I did. And it sort of reminds me of the final sequence in 2001: A Space Odyssey, where you hear Hal starting to sing the Daisy song. But it'll give you an idea. We're going to do these really big atmospheric textures. And what's interesting about this mode is, I guess it's called pulse stretch. It allows you to do almost 100 times slower change and manipulation and slowdown of a patch, which again on some of the spoken word stuff and maybe some beat things can be really cool. But I think on this, where it really excels is kind of this pad where we've got this texture that we've got loaded here. There was a piano at one point. So for the next engine, I'm going to show the slice engine. And as you can see, I've loaded in a beat. I'm going to play the beat. It's just something that I had worked on the OPXY, and it sounds like this. Cool. So I loaded that on here. I did an auto slice, so it picked a bunch of slice points. It's very fast to do this. Once you load your sample in, it'll automatically pick everything, and it's really easy to do this triggering that we've got here. Now this patch is kind of fun to do with an arpeggiator coming in here. And it creates a clicking textural thing that I think would be a lot of fun for percussion, much like how I use Qubit's Mojave in my Eurorack setup. And I'll give you an example of this. Pretty cool. Especially modulating these delays and these reverbs in here can sound really, really cool. Now, of course, you could do a bunch of things that you would normally do, I think, with a bunch of sampled. Let's go ahead and clean this up. A bunch of sampled drum loops that you've got sliced up. You could do all kinds of things. Each one of these slices can have their own filter settings. And you can play them in one shot, you can play them in a looped mode, you can do a whole bunch of things like that. It is pretty fun to start switching these modes around. So here's the sampler mode, which of course is just gonna play it like a regular sampler would. But the fun ones are going to be things like the tape mode. And I'm actually going to put this into a looping mode right now, as opposed to one shot. And to be honest with you, the menu system in here is probably one of my least favorite things about the GR Mega. It takes a lot of clicking around. I'm hoping this is one of the things that they can try to get you into the least, because once you're editing effects and adding effects into a patch, it just takes a lot of work, and it's the least fun part of using it. I love scrubbing on these patches. It's a lot of fun. And then here's the spectral mode, which is really cool. And here's what's cool about this. It's a lot of fun. The spectral mode is one of the coolest things. And of course, here's using this as a granular engine on here. Let's turn off secretization. lot of different things you can do. So for the third patch, this is the kalimba, and here's what that sounds like. Pretty basic. And this one's a fun one because it's got that plucky sound to it, and you can imagine using it in a lot of things where it's got a little bit of a rhythmic element. Got this in one-shot mode right now. Let's change it over to looped. It's a little bit more fun for this kind of a sound. It's very pretty. You see I've got some modulation going on with the different LFOs, playing with some of the sounds here. And I could play something here from the OPXY. It's just something I'm playing around with. It's a little bit of a sketch, but here's what it sounds like. You can imagine overlaying something like this one's a lot of fun to play with, especially with sounds like this, because turning them into textures or something rhythmic, I think could be a lot of useful elements that you could use in almost any tracks that you might be working on. But on top of that, you can then take them and do all these other modes, and we can turn these into Now what's cool is we could take this type of sound and we can use it for, you know, the same types of things we did to the piano, which we can make it a little bit more textural. This one's a fun one. And of course, all the other modes. Can take you to totally different places. Feels like we're lost in space. Intercepting signals from some other galaxy. I think you could pretty much do an entire horror movie soundtrack with the spectral processor on this thing. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. For the fourth mode, I actually did a little bit of a spoken word sample. And I think that that's the best way to demonstrate this because it really does remind me of that scene in 2001. This was a comment that somebody had left on one of my videos that I thought was, it kind of inspired me to have this read aloud and use this mode to sort of manipulate and play around with it. Let me share the raw sample.
As shit. It's like you. This song is boring as shit. It's like you think music is just stringing together 4-bar beats. Shit poster was correct. This song is boring as shit.
All right. So let's hear what this sounds like. So I've got the scrubbing set up here. So for this patch, I have a LFO that's modulating the position that's basically being scrubbed across the sample in spectral mode. And it gives it just this like surreal, glitchy effect as I'm speaking.
The song is boring as shit. It's like think music is just stringing together 4-bar beats. Shit poster was correct. This song
is boring as shit. It's like music is just stringing together 4-bar beats. Shit poster was correct. This song
is boring.
Boring as shit. Boring as it's like as shit. Think it is boring as song is boring as shit.
I think that this mode is so cool, especially for anything that has vocals or any spoken word samples. It's just a lot of fun. I literally spent probably an hour playing around with this, and while I don't know that I came up with anything that I'll use in a song, I had a lot of fun playing with it. And you can just do all kinds of weird things. This Paul stretch effect.
Boring as shit. It's like you think music is just together 4 beats. Boring. You think music just string or four beats.
Isn't that weird? It's really cool. You know, the other modes are interesting here because you could take a sound like a spoken word sample and you can really just turn it into almost it sounds like a crowd. It sounds like a crowd that's speaking.
It's like you think music is just stringing together 4-bar beats. Shit, music is the shit poster was correct. It's like you
Boring as shit.
It's like you think music
And maybe that's the best way to describe the GR Mega. It's a lot of fun. It takes a lot of experimentation. Coming into this, I feel like you really don't know exactly what you're going to end up with. And you may spend a long time just screwing around with the sounds, and you may end up with something that's a lot of fun, but isn't really what you ever went in looking for, and might not be something that you're going to use in a song. I have spent hours playing with this thing, and I've had a lot of fun. I do have some ideas on how I might use the spectral feature to do some transitional effects in a track that I'm working on, and I'll keep you updated if that's what I do, because I think it could be something very useful to create effects that I don't have an ability to do anyplace else in the studio. At the beginning I mentioned, why did I buy this thing? Well, I bought this to create atmospheric effects, pads, transitional sounds, swipes, and scratches and things like that. And I think that this is really within its wheelhouse. I think it's definitely something that it can do. It is a new device, and I just updated the firmware for this video. And it seems definitely much more stable than when I first got it. It's a big synth. It's unexpectedly large, but what's interesting about it is that for as big as it is, you will spend some time in the menus. So I'm hoping that this is something, as Tasty Chips is further developing the firmware, that they can get you out of that menu section as much as possible, because it's the least fun things, because you got these little arrow buttons over here, and they are not fun to use. Especially, you know, if I want to add an effect to this particular patch, I can quick jump into the effects section, but say that you want to change the first effect, which is currently the reducer. I got to press down, got to jump over there. I can sit here and I can jump through these. It's just not my favorite part of using this thing. And so when I think about ways that the GR Mega can be improved, it'll be keeping you out here in your sounds, in your patch as much as possible, and just making it so that it's really just as fast and easy as it is to use things like the LFO section to get to the sound design, because that's why you're here. You really don't want to spend time in these menus. And as I mentioned, it's actually big. It's called GR Mega. It actually lives up to that. It's mega fucking large. It is a big synthesizer, and it's going to take up a bunch of space. Kind of, I think in my mind, I'm imagining it over there behind the camera, over by where I have a bunch of the drums and samplers that I have. I think that'll be a perfect place for it. But I got to actually work it into the studio now and find a real home for it. So I'll keep you updated as to what I do, but hopefully this gives you an idea of what it is, what it does, and the types of things that you can do with it. I think it is a lot of fun. I hope that this was helpful to you. Feel free to ask me any questions, and sign off. Thank you.